How good is the Blitzer after the buff? Which backpack and support stratagems work best with it? How can you affect the spread of the Blitzer blast and shoot it accurately in midair?
Nope.
I set out to explore these questions, and let me tell you folks, this Blitzer backpack combination that I've been experimenting with is absolutely relentless when playing against swarming, skittering bugs. With positional awareness and a burning desire to hang out right near bug breaches and along the front lines, it can crowd control and destroy hunters, warriors, nursery spewers, brood commanders, and perhaps most impressively, it can stunlock stalkers and even make them salute you.
Special Officer Dookie reporting.
I will break down exactly how you can set yourself up to be your team's aggressive frontline dominator, racking up insane kill counts and creating space for the recoilless rifle enjoyers to do their work. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Your role in this build is very simple. Bully and neutralize swarm threats and prioritize keeping the tide of bugs at bay away from your team. The Blitzer, or the Zap Zap Shotty as it's affectionately known as, is the main focus of this loadout. Equipping the Blitzer makes you a worthy adversary for any bug breach, provided you hang out close enough to get the shots in early, but not so much that you get nuked by your stratagem call-ins. It can dispose of most light and medium terminid units effectively, and provided you are prepared to put yourself into quite dangerous positions with confidence and conviction, this build is incredibly punchy and exciting to play. Hunters can be taken down in 1 to 2 shots, provided you are getting direct hits on the main centers of mass, and as with all other chaff enemy types, they get knocked around a lot when taking hits, which is incredibly useful for keeping this lethal threat at bay. Brood commanders are also easily bullied away from you and can be decapitated in around 2 to 3 blasts. Nursery spewers are also very manageable with this weapon, provided that you keep moving and kiting the enemy. You can also flinch and stun lock them before they spit, which often comes in clutch, believe me, and this is also the case for our friend the Stalker, provided they don't get the jump on you first, which is easier said than done. Hive guards, on the other hand, are a tough nut to crack, taking 4 and upwards hits to kill. They stop advancing though when they get hit, so my advice here would be mindful of them, give them the occasional tap on the head to remind them who's boss, and deal with the other mobs first before mopping them up last. Now, despite the recent buff making this weapon incredibly lethal and enjoyable, it does come with some drawbacks which you should be prepared for and react accordingly. Shriekers, for example, can be an absolute pain. You only really get the opportunity to shoot them when they make a dive for you, and whilst this is doable, it's not ideal. Personally, I just grit my teeth and deal with it whilst hovering near a teammate who can handle them, but if you want to take matters into your own hands, you may want to ensure you've got the Senator or the Redeemer in your loadout, and you may want to hold on for a tip I'm going to give you at the end of this section on how to use the Blitzer effectively to create a bigger spread in your attack. That will help you out massively here. Bile spewers are also something that I would recommend not going toe-to-toe with if you can help it. Instead, use stun grenades and or well-placed stratagems to dispose of these acidic nuisances. Now, obviously, putting yourself in harm's way playing this build comes with quite a high risk of being overwhelmed. Therefore, it is important that we put a number of safety precautions in place to support our Blitzer-centric playstyle. First up, the Medic Armor passive is an absolute must. This lets us heal through any damage we happen to make from making a mistake for an extra 2 seconds and carry an additional 2 stims. The weight of the armor will depend on how you want to play, and more on that later, but I do choose between light and medium myself. Stun grenades are the perfect support tool for this loadout. It allows us to calm things down when things get too much, get into more favorable positions and throw in our stratagems, get shots off on heavy targets such as chargers and bile titans, more on that later, and it's all about drawing in the enemy, folks, creating space for you and your team, mopping up as many bugs as possible. This next tip though is perhaps one of the most game-changing things I learned during my playtesting of this build, and I can't take credit for it, folks. I actually learnt this during a recent live stream where Faceshift community member Jalon and Crimson advised me not to right-click an ADS when using the Blitzer, and this would take it to the next level. Curious, I took this into some solo runs to test, and oh my word, they were not wrong, folks. By not ADSing the Blitzer, it appears to widen the spread, encouraging it to connect with enemies in a wider arc as opposed to a more focused small frontal cone. What it has revealed is that you can choose between focusing your shot shots in specific areas of a horde or becoming much more general in your cover of it. In most situations, I would advise using the non-ADS technique, as this is the much more fruitful choice when keeping space between you and your enemies, and it does appear to do more work against larger volumes of chaff much more quickly. As if the weapon wasn't already exciting enough without this major point of advice, we haven't yet gone over how the Blitzer interacts with the jetpack yet. More on that point later. This is all well and good, decimating hordes of chaff in a swashbuckling manner, but what happens when chargers and Bile Titans are inevitably thrown into the mix? A very fair question, and this is where things start to heat up and make this build even more fun to play. It will come as no surprise that given this is a backpack loadout, we are limited to two choices: the expendable anti-tank and the Quasar cannon. But which is better? Well, the answer here isn't really that straightforward. I've tried this loadout with both the expendable anti-tank and the Quasar cannon, and both have their merits and shortcomings. Where the Quasar cannon shines is its ease of use and access. You take a shot with it and then get on with your business for the next 18 seconds, and it's there waiting for you ready and prep. This is for me the most attractive aspect of it. Using the Quasar and the Blitzer also means that you are running a fully energy-based setup and require no ammo aside from your sidearm, another humongous bonus. It can also one-shot charges if you land a headshot. It can also close bug holes, two-shot spore spewers and shrieker nest, and perhaps most importantly, it can also two-shot Bile Titans. Bile Titans are an interesting topic, and I've recently been educating myself in the more subtle nuances of how our two weapons in question can be used more effectively by one of Thick Filet's most recent videos that discusses this topic in detail. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like to check out this video in its entirety. This is something I would fully recommend, as Mr. Filet creates some excellent, informative Helldivers 2 content. As they point out, Bile Titans appear to take less damage when performing their spit attack, making dealing with them effectively a little more nuanced than meets the eye. This is because you need to aim for the upper half of their head, the forehead in fact. This is tricky because during a spit attack, the Titan's forehead disappears behind their back scales, really upping the ante when trying to place a shot. This is why you don't get those juicy kills when you shoot the mouth or see a chunk of their back armor fly off instead. If you're being chased when using the Quasar, it's important to bait the spit attack and time the shot shortly after it starts spewing. Despite the annoying wind-up time, once you get used to this, you can effectively two-shot Bile Titans. A tip that I can give you is if you're using the jetpack and you're being chased by the Bile, bait the spit and jump away using the jetpack and begin to charge up during the descent. If you time this right, you can shave off some of the wind-up time as long as you are ready to quickly acquire the target by spinning round. This is difficult, but it can pay off massively. The Quasar cannon has been slapped pretty hard with the proverbial nerf bat, and I think they've been a little too aggressive with the cooldown increase, but with that being said, it's not actually the cooldown I find to be the biggest problem. It's more the wind-up that compounds the issue further, and this is perhaps one of the main reasons why you might prefer our other choice here, the expendable anti-tank. This too can deal with Bile Titans and gives a choice to those of us who cannot stand that annoying wind-up of the Quasar, giving us an instant shot while still having the backpack slot available. Using the same principles outlined before, you can two-shot a Bile Titan. I personally find having the Quasar cannon handy much more beneficial than constantly having to call in the expendable anti-tank and sometimes getting swarmed too much to be able to pick them up, but this is just personal preference. It's still absolutely a viable choice in this loadout and is incredibly fun to play. To round off weapon choices, in my opinion, the grenade pistol is a good option here if you would like a little bit more utility to deal with bug holes and destroying eggs on the move. Word on the street is that grenade pistol is actually quite strong against broken charger armor and broken Bile Titan armor. I haven't tested that myself. Maybe you can inform us in the comments below, folks. Now onto the backpack slot. The jetpack excels as it allows us to increase our survivability and positioning tenfold. Against bugs, it cannot be understated just how powerful having the ability to jump away from danger, open up space for us to continue to zap and crowd control really is. Paired with the Blitzer, it allows us to make use of high ground to kite and neutralize dangerous groups of enemies in a really safe and controlled manner, and it's a fantastic kiting tool that you can use not only to get away from enemies, but also push into them and gain more favourable positions in the heat of battle. I love jumping over groups of enemies or a charger to gain the upper hand and cause a bit of confusion to them bug suckers for a change. The jetpack allows you to aggressively intervene when a squad mate is being overwhelmed. A simple jump onto the flank of an attack and you can start killing, CCing and pulling aggro away towards you. And as if that wasn't already enough, there's an interaction between how the jetpack and the blitzer can work in perfect harmony, which I'll be going over shortly in the general playstyle section. Do not miss that, folks, because this is a real game changer when using this backpack. Our other option is the laser dog, and this thing really ups the ante in terms of our general crowd clear ability. As if we weren't shredding things enough, this thing just continues to create even more space and damage output, making it a highly viable choice. Even after the recent nerf, it still feels like it's doing incredible work. Before I jump into stratagem choices, it would be hugely appreciated if you could drop the video a like and smash that subscribe button. It really helps me out. For my stratagem choices, I choose to use the Eagle Cluster Strike. I think this is absolutely S tier against terminids for obvious reasons. With 5 charges, it makes incredibly short work of packs of all chaff enemies and can turn a frightening multi-breach into an isolated Bile spewer, which you can then quickly deal with some well-placed zaps. It can, in some instances, even deal with charges, and depending on the state of a Bile Titan, also chip away at them. I would, however, place more faith in our next stratagem choice, which is of course the orbital rail cannon. This orbital gives us the capability to deal with biles and annoying chargers, and I find using this stratagem in combination with the Quasar cannon or other teammates' launcher weapons brings down a bile very swiftly. I believe if you de-sack the Bile Titan, for want of a better phrase, that is shooting out its soft gooey underside, just so we're clear, the rail cannon can become much more reliable in terms of kill potential. Perhaps someone in the comments can sound off below and let us know. Now, remember that epic jetpack blitzer interaction I mentioned previously? Well, here it is. Have you ever found yourself really frustrated getting shots off with a weapon when using the jetpack, only to find it goes completely in the wrong direction? Yeah, me too. But I've found it is possible, with the correct timing, to be able to jump and shoot at your target in midair and continue to do so throughout your landing. This makes using the jetpack in those pinch situations even stronger than it already was, because it increases the uptime of our damage output to include even when we are in retreat/reposition modes of play. To achieve this, you need to time pressing jump, the direction you want to travel, and fire at the same time. As simple as it sounds, it's surprisingly difficult to get used to, and it definitely requires some practice to develop that muscle memory mid-fight to do this, but folks, mark my words, this makes all the difference against enemies like stalkers and hunters especially. 1 or 2 extra shots from complete safety is incredibly clutch. I'm also going to presume that this works for other weapons like the flamethrower, but I haven't yet tested it. If you have any more information on this, please let me know. If you think I've missed any points that would be helpful, I would love to hear them, so please do sound off in the comments below. If you're looking for a breakdown of tips and tricks for a highly effective AMR sniper build against automatons, this next video's got you covered. Take care of yourselves, keep having fun, and I'll see you in the next one.